Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, or MOUNJARO? Then join us on the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, or MOUNJARO. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 MOUNJARO TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity, related diseases and disorders, and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together, because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.
Alive on the MOUNJARO, it's on the pen alive, with your host David Knapp.
Thank you, clap, track, and happy Thursday night. Welcome to On the Pen Live. My name is Dave Knapp. I am the man on the MOUNJARO. That's why I'm here. You are on the pen. Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, MOUNJARO, Zepbound, that pen. That is why you're here. The algorithm has you here. A passing interest in GLP-1s has you here. Whatever it is, it has you here. Korrie, our special guest tonight, has you here. Whatever it is, we're so happy to have you here tonight, and we are excited to bring you another installment. I believe it's our 59th episode of On the Pen Live. We've been going strong for well over a year now, and you've been with us for a while. And so I appreciate each and every one of you who give a little bit of your time each week to come here and spend time in community. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being the best part of what we do here at On the Pen with Man on the MOUNJARO. We've got a great show tonight. We have Korrie from TikTok, who I have met fairly recently over there. She makes excellent content, great content around the idea of shedding the diet culture, abandoning the yo-yo dieting that is so detrimental not only to our mental health, but to our physical health as well. And she's here to share her story tonight. So welcome in the chat, Korrie tonight, who will be on for our Hot Channel segment. But let's get into a little housekeeping for the week, shall we? We shall. Housekeeping. Rudy, Crystal, Nate, Anna, Deborah, Tanya, Patricia, thank you for being here. Caesar, welcome. Thank you for being here. Natalie, Sabrina, Donna, Jennifer, so many of you in here. I can hardly keep up. Thank you for being here tonight. If you're new here, put an N in the chat next to your name. Let me know that you're new here. I always like to welcome new people by name and just know that you're here. So put it in the chat if you're new. We'd love to welcome you. I've got some housekeeping stuff just to tell you right off the bat. Usually this is just, channel specific news. Thank you for the gifts over on TikTok. You're teeing me up well for what I'm about to tell you. So this month, in the month of March, and I think we'll probably keep this going on after this, but for the month of March, all of the paid memberships, everybody who's a paid member, whether you're on TikTok, that there's 32 of you over on TikTok, there's about 100 of you over on YouTube who are members who pay a little bit every month. to be a part of the community and give back to the work that I do. Thank you so much for doing that. I have been always looking for ways to give back to those who give to me. So 10% of all of the dues that people pay for their memberships and 10% of all of the gifts this month are going to go to one paid member. And that person will just hopefully get a little gift of money that can help them pay for their medication or part of their medication for the month. That's the spirit behind it. If you can find your medicine this month, that is, that's where we're at. Annette is new. Thank you for being here. Kelly's new. Diane is new. Thank you for being here. We've got several people watching over on TikTok that are new as well. We've got Esmeralda, Juju Bean, Viziac, BLK, Gala, M. Trava Designs. Welcome, Zoya. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. It's great to have you here. So 10% of the gifts are going to go to one paid member. So thank you for those who have given gifts this month. Marty said, how do you become a member? The link should be in the description of the video. If you're on an Apple phone, if you just go to the description, there should be a link that says join, right? And if you're on an Android, there should just be a button that says join. Someday they'll make it easy for people with Apple phones to join as well. I don't know why they don't want their money too, because YouTube takes a nice healthy cut of it, as does TikTok. So that's what's fresh, or that's at least the news for the channel. If you haven't gotten the chance to check it out, I've been making some more videos about my own personal journey this past week. Welcome back, Michelle. How are you tonight? Michelle will be doing a segment in the coming weeks on maintenance. So we're excited to bring that and fold that into what we're doing here, and a lot of exciting things going on for the future of the channel. I'll look forward to sharing those with you as time goes on here over the next couple of weeks. Some big announcements to make coming in the next couple of weeks. But let's talk about what's fresh in the news for GLP-1s this week. So one of the things that I was talking about in a TikTok live this past week, I wanted to bring to the YouTube folks over here, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but I'm not sure how much we belabored it. One of the things when we talk about the development of the peptides for these medications, because the huge thing that's facing everybody right now is the shortages. The shortages are what everybody is talking about, and we know because we're smart people that the manufacturing of these pens is really complicated. If you got the chance to see my video this past week that I put out, I actually x-rayed a Wegovy pen and a MOUNJARO pen. I've taken them apart before as well, but the complexity of these pens cannot be understated. And so you say, well, how do you know that it's not the API, the active pharmaceutical ingredient? Well, it very well may be, and there may be a point that we hear that the API is hard to come by, but let's get to the heart of the matter about what the API is made of. Well, for semaglutide, it's yeast. And so it's yeast is the main ingredient that is used in making semaglutide, which is readily available. Yeast is not a hard ingredient to get. I really firmly believe that this is an issue with the pens. So somebody was asking me where I got that information. I'm going to throw that up one more time. That was from a Novo Nordisk presentation from just a couple of weeks ago. So as you can see there, yeast is the API production platform for the diabetes and obesity medicines that they are researching. So that I thought that was interesting information to bring to you, and just helpful context to have. There was another Novo Nordisk presentation today. Justin's watching on X. Hey, holler at us if you're watching on X. Thank you for watching there. Make sure you like and share this video. So the updates today were really interesting to follow. There wasn't a ton of updates, but it was sort of a look back at the year 2023 for investors and all the things they accomplished, and then some forward-looking goals for 2024. It was interesting to hear them talk about just the future of Novo Nordisk and their manufacturing expansion. The most interesting thing that I pulled out of it goes back to this Catalent acquisition. So when we talk, I mean, everything, all the conversations in all the communities right now around GLP-1, whether you're taking Wegovy or Ozempic, MOUNJARO or Zepbound, is all supply chain related. People are having such a hard time finding their medication. And one of the interesting things is Novo Nordisk came out just a few weeks ago and announced that they were going to acquire a company called Catalent. Now, Catalent is actually a manufacturer of mainly generic drugs, but they also have contracts with both Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk to make the active ingredients and finish and fill pens of MOUNJARO and Wegovy and Ozempic. Not only that, but we learned on a Eli Lilly conference call, when they were asked about this acquisition, we learned that they're actually making the medicines that go in clinical trials. So retatrutide, CagriSema, on the Lilly side, it's going to be retatrutide and orforglipron are going to be the two big ones. It's very interesting because this merger, if it's allowed to go through, will expand Novo Nordisk's capacity in a massive way. But on this call today, they said they do not expect in any way that this merger will happen before the end of this year. So if this merger is to happen, it won't happen before the end of this year. And my sense is that it will not get through the regulators in the United States because they are responsible for making generic medication and active pharmaceutical ingredients, pens, for many of the big industry players. And I believe it would create too much of a conflict of interest and interfere with Novo Nordisk having basically a monopoly on the manufacturing. What we've learned, and people have asked me this, like, Dave, how can these companies who are flush with cash, like money is no object, how can they possibly be short on these medications? Well, it's just a matter of manufacturing. Novo Nordisk said today that they couldn't have predicted that semaglutide would be as big as it was. As soon as they did, they started, allocating funds to build factories, but that all takes time. In fact, the factories that they're building won't come online for several years. Eli Lilly, seeing all this and anticipating that tirzepatide would be even greater yet than semaglutide, has actually had several plants in the United States in the works for several years, some of which have come online. The plant in North Carolina, which is coming on line by line, which is increasing capacity. It actually doubled capacity last year. So from the start of last year, 2023, to the end of 2023, they doubled the amount of these pens that they can make. However, the issue is that right now they're writing, by some estimates, 100,000 prescriptions a week, nearly 100,000 prescriptions a week of Zepbound, overtaking the amount of new Wegovy prescriptions that are written per week. So the crazy thing here is that when you start to break down the math, 100,000 new customers every month equates to 400,000 pens that have to be made every month. 400. And so that's per week, right? So you multiply that by 4 and you got 1.2 million extra pens that have to be made on top of what they made the month before every month. They're never going to keep pace with that. That is why I have been so loud over the last week that Eli Lilly needs to, and some of you are way ahead of me in the chat, Eli Lilly needs to release the vials. The single-dose vial presentation we talked about in the fall here because we cover all things GLP-1 news on this channel. We've been talking about single-dose vials for months and months and months. We know that the single-dose vials are approved for the use in the United States. We know there's probably some reticence on the part of Eli Lilly to release the single-dose vials in the United States because of fear of stretching out doses and things like that. But we already know that there are people doing that with the pens. It's time for Eli Lilly to hashtag release the vials. So that is the news. The news is all about basically scarcity of the medicines right now. And we're facing a shortage. And here's the deal. We've faced shortages before, so we know the tips. We know the tricks. We've talked about calling the pharmacies and the hospital pharmacies and the mile radius search and having your doctor write a 3-month prescription at a time. We know all the tricks. But this shortage is going to get far worse than the first shortage was. And so we are going to have to come up with new solutions for people to be able to stay on the medicine. Marty became a member. Thank you for becoming a member, Marty. It's good to have you here. So that's my rant for the week for the what's new. I mean, there's much more that we could talk about, but you'll have to check out my videos from this week because we have covered the Oprah special, which was a really great educational piece on the disease of obesity. Lots of really good information baked in there. Definitely was a piece that was opportunistic for Weight Watchers, but I digress. But if you look at it from strictly just an educational standpoint, just a really great way to infuse the idea of the new paradigm of the science that's come out on the disease of obesity and just some of the things that happen to somebody biologically who struggles with the disease of obesity. Yes, we said the disease. If you believe that obesity is a disease, put disease in the chat, please. So it was really good in that way. I did a breakdown of that video if you want to watch the full one. So that was the news. It was inopportune time because of all the shortages that people are facing. But yeah, this is going to get nasty, folks. And so we need Eli Lilly to, at a minimum, release the vials. And hopefully they look the way of Novo Nordisk, where Novo Nordisk just stopped making the starter doses of Wegovy for several months so they could catch up the supply to keep the people who are on the medication on it, because it is far worse for these people who are just having to go off the medication for weeks and months at a time. We have no clinical data for what that does to somebody to have to go up a dose, down a dose, off a dose, on a dose, off a medication, on a medication. They didn't trial that. They trialed a slow, nice, easy titration process. So this will be a very interesting one to watch. Sabrina, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate you. We're going to move on to the next part of our show. We're going to talk about some fake news for the week. Let's find that bumper and then roll that bumper. Take out. So one of the interesting things that I keep seeing, in addition to all of the bootleg peptides that you see rolling around for advertisements on the social medias, is kind of being overtaken by supplements now that claim to increase natural GLP-1 production. And so I want to show you just one that I saw that just looks so bogus. Oblemic, no play on words there. You got to love, even in the description, Ozemp. They left the IC off, so, they're not breaking any rules. But just a play on letters there to make you think you're getting something that you're not. What you're getting is berberine, which we've talked about many times on this channel. If you like berberine, if you take it, if it works for you, great. But one thing that it definitely is not is nature's Ozempic. Maybe you could stretch it and say it's nature's metformin, but that's even, I think, being generous. But hey, if you take it and it works for you, more power to you. Just stop telling people that it's nature's Ozempic, because it ain't. So yeah, that's the fake news for the week. How's everybody doing? Highs and lows for the week. If y'all had any great moments this week, please share them in the chat. Any of those NSVs or scale victories, anybody hit their goal weight, anything like that, let us know in the chat. We'd love to help you celebrate. But I am excited to bring in our guest tonight, who's been so gracious to give us some of her time. We're going to bring her into the stream here in just a moment. But Korrie from TikTok, who I've met fairly recently over there, is going to come share a little bit about her journey through the disease of obesity, through just her journey. She's going to share her journey with us all the way up to her time now as a content creator in the space and an advocate for these medicines. So please help me welcome in tonight's
Hot channel.
Korrie, welcome to On the Pen. How are you tonight?
Great. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I'm always so grateful when people are willing to give me a little bit of a time out of their week to share their story. And we're so excited to hear your story. I've recently kind of come across your content and just really appreciate the authenticity and the passion that you have for the community. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I wish I actually had to put makeup on tonight. I couldn't rely on pretty babe with lashes. So
it's brutal over here. It's brutal over here. I had to go through hair and makeup also.
I'm very new to TikTok. I joined that back in, over the summer probably, for our little rental house that we have in Southwest Florida. And so then when I started researching tirzepatide, I used that account, and yours was the first face that I ever saw in one of your videos. And I was like, oh, this is okay. There's education out here and somebody who's talking about this type of stuff. And it was the first beginning of everything. So I always appreciated your content very much. And then that kind of led me into the other people like Rachel and JT, Kim, Sabrina, Amy. And I became quite obsessed with everyone. In my household, everyone's like, why are you on TikTok all the time? I'm like, you don't understand. This is amazing, the education that I'm getting here, which I would have never believed before. But yeah, it's my story. Let's see. I mean, I chose the whole yo-yo thing with my name, just having the little green yo-yo icon there, because that's been my whole life. It's felt like, and not like from the very beginning. Like I was, I was born And my mom nursed me for 2.5 years. And so I had a great, healthy start to my life. And, but I was a very picky little eater. I would not eat anything. I looked like a little starving child. And my grandfather told my mother just to give me cream. So they started putting half and half in my cereal. And so I ate cereal with half and half until I was in my early teens. And I tried that a few years ago. I was like, "Oh, that tastes like it's disgusting." So
How did I do that?
very easily addicted to sugar from early on. But my parents were very granola-y. This is the early 70s, and we never had what you would think of as like bad foods in the house. We didn't have Cheetos, my favorite. We didn't have cookies except for special occasions. Never had soda. When we came home from school, my mom would have grapes, carrots, strawberries, celery, things like that for us as a snack. And we enjoyed it. That was normal for us. And I would eat garbage at my friends' homes, and thought it was fantastic. But some of it I thought was just repulsive. So food was never quite an issue for me in that regard until I got a little bit older, in high school probably. But it still wasn't that big a deal. But with my family history, we've got diabetes on one side and then hypoglycemia on the other side. And so it's almost like a battle in my body that's like, which way are we going to go here?
So it doesn't just balance out? That's not how it
doesn't
works?
really do that. It's really strange. And that's why it's been really weird for me, because 3 years ago, we were at a restaurant, and I had 2 glasses of wine, like a sugary wine. I love Moscato, or I did. I don't drink it anymore because I'm like, I'm never going to go through this experience again. And there was a long pause between dinner. We were with friends and had some bread, and then the dinner, and then a dessert. And all of a sudden I was like, I don't feel really well. I didn't say anything. I was like, I'm just going to use the restroom real quick. And I got up and I started walking, and I was like, just make it to the door. Just make it to the door. And so I got to the door, opened it, and I saw the bathroom all the way on the other side. I was like, just make it there. And there were only 2 people at the bar there. And I was like, just make it. And I made it halfway, and I just grabbed onto the table, and I sunk down to my knees, kind of passing out. And I was like, maybe no one will notice. And they rushed around the side, and then they ran and got my husband and our friends, and they put me on the couch and laid me down, and sweat. I mean, it was dripping off of me like rain. And I was having some sort of, I don't know if it's I guess a hypoglycemic reaction. I don't know, but it was so intense. And I've had a lot of things like that my entire life, where it's just, if I didn't get food by a certain amount of time, I would be crashing and just a monster. At
what point in your life did you identify that that's what was going on? That it was hypoglycemia? Or is it more of a hindsight?
It's hindsight, because it was always like, just give her a piece of bread. And in 30 seconds, no kid, in 30 seconds, I would be better. And then I would apologize to people. I mean, it was just literally what happened with my life the entire time. So it's always very strange. But after that incident, I was like, I need some answers, because that was not normal. That was the most extreme that's ever happened. Found out that the same thing happened to my little sister and my mother at different points in their life. So I was like, okay, there's something wrong here. But then we've got diabetes on the other hand as well. So things like that through the years. So mine is, oddly, this medication, tirzepatide, and now I'm on Zepbound, I don't know how, I don't know why, it has resolved my hypoglycemia. I don't know why. And the A1C, I was only at like 5.5, 5.6, but for me, that was very high because I'd never been that high before. And as of December, it was 5.0. So that's gone down. I'm not having any sort of hypoglycemia issues whatsoever now. They're just resolved. And for me, it's significant. So I don't know how it does that, because I know that they say, oh, well, this medication, it could give you hypoglycemia. And I'm like, well, for me, it's resolved it. So I don't quite understand it. But I know that I love it. And it's cool trial.
Absolutely. I mean, you probably didn't start taking it expecting that it was going to resolve
No, I was honestly
considered?
just really hoping that I would just live to see 50 this coming August. I was very, very unhealthy last August for my 49th birthday. And our rental property had been almost destroyed by Hurricane Ian. This was 2 months after we finished renovating it after we bought it. So we had spent all this money, did all the stuff, and then this happened, and we had to do it again. But it's on a private island, bridgeless barrier island in Florida, and a dream come true. And so we had to do all over again. And the amount of physical manual labor that we did, and it was so extreme. And I had already gained so much weight again because I yo-yo all the time. And so it was so extreme. And my blood pressure, I've always had very low blood pressure, but my blood pressure for 2 weeks was at 155 over 120. And I went to the walk-in clinic and I was like, I don't know what's wrong. Like, I know I'm stressed. I'm really stressed. And so I think there's something in culture with suffering. And if it's a different type of suffering, because I was like, we're so blessed. It's fine. It's just a house. It's just money. And I do believe that. But when you're in the crux of all of that, you're really dealing with physical labor and so much stress for months on end without any let up.
Right.
There's something called toxic positivity, and we very much experienced that. And so you're trying to be really positive, but it was just eating me up inside. So my blood pressure was through the roof. I gained another 10 pounds. It was just, I kept going up and I was so unhealthy. And then my numbers, I went and got blood work. I'd been trying to get a bunch of IV therapy at that point. And so my 49th birthday, I was telling my sister and then my other friend, I was like, I am absolutely miserable, miserable. This is all I think about all the time, all day long, is how badly I feel about myself at this point. This is not who I am supposed to be. I don't want to think about this all the time. I love the Lord. I love my family. I love my friends. And I don't want this to be something that I'm thinking about for the rest of my life all day long. So that's when I found out about tirzepatide. And I was nervous to take it because I had taken semaglutide a few years before that on Wegovy. And I was very sick from that. But I think now, if I took it now, I think I would probably do a lot better. I don't think I was doing it correctly. I definitely was not getting the protein that I should have gotten. So many things that I've learned through people on TikTok that I didn't know. Sure. And so I got more information. And so it's like the protein drinks that saved me in the beginning. I mean, I had 2 or 3 of those a day, and it's just to get me through, people through initially with things like that. So that was very helpful for me to be able to get a lot of education on TikTok and how to be able to take these more appropriately, because I started out with compound at my little local IV place before anybody had heard of this or done anything, this was brand new. So it was, I was kind of going into the great unknown for like most people. So.
Yeah. So I'm curious, when you were on the semaglutide, well, first of all, did you wear a glucose monitor at all?
No, but I take my blood at home. I'll test it. Yeah. I bought one of them years ago, and so I'm like, there's something wrong with me. And so I would test it. And I mean, it would be like 86, 96, maybe 110 or something if I have eaten something. But yeah. I mean, my blood, those types of levels have always been normal. So I don't quite understand it.
So typically it's interesting, as we were chatting a little bit before the show, typically the way that GLP or incretin mimetics work is that it's going to actually help your body to produce more insulin, but only in the presence of nutrient intake, right? That's the magic of it. That's why it works so well for type 2 diabetics who have been on, insulin for years and years and years because they've used that synthetic insulin, but then the GLP-1 comes along and it's like insulin on demand from your own body. That's kind of the magic of it. But what I have noticed, because I was off of MOUNJARO for the last 3 months and I was on Ozempic, is that and I wear this is the CGM, so this is where I get really valuable insights, is that on MOUNJARO, it's very clear through my CGM that my body is much more efficient with the insulin, where the spikes don't go as high. And then conversely, on the way down, they don't go so low. With Ozempic, what would happen is it would not do a great job initially. And my sugars would go up as if I had no medicine at all, of comparing it to when I'd be on MOUNJARO. And then conversely, on the way down, it was like my body produced so much insulin that my sugars would go all the way down into like the 50s. But now, having been on MOUNJARO for 3 weeks now, it's just so much smoother. It's like once I get on the MOUNJARO from a diabetic standpoint, I'm just not diabetic, and that's a huge gift for me.
Amazing. Now, do you think you said that the metformin you just started as well, right?
No, I didn't start. So I took metformin before I took MOUNJARO a couple years ago. What I started this week was naltrexone.
Naltrexone. Okay.
And I just mentioned that at the beginning of the
naltrexone,
low dose.
Yes. So that with bupropion is Contrave. So have they done that with you before, the Contrave? Because I was surprised to hear you. I didn't mean the naltrexone. I was surprised to hear you say that.
So interestingly enough, none of my doctors had ever recommended Contrave, and I don't know if they just didn't know that they could get it covered or think they could get it covered. I went out and sought out low-dose naltrexone about 3 or 4 months ago on my own through Ageless RX, right? It's a random website. I knew of them and I'd used them for other things before, but it's a compounded pill, so it's very inexpensive. And so I just thought maybe I'll try the LDN. And so I got it. And then interestingly enough, the guy who has the YouTube channel about the medicines, I'm very reticent to take a new medication. I almost get if I'm being honest, I almost get like anxiety over taking a new medicine because I'm like, I don't want things to mess with my personality. I don't want things to mess with my energy levels. And I just get worked up into kind of a frenzy about it. So I took it a couple nights when I first got it, and then I just didn't take it anymore. And so this past week, it was like on an auto ship and I forgot to turn it off. So I got another huge bottle of it and I was like, well, I need to just use this. Yeah. And so I started it this past week. And so I don't know, like the scale moved finally, but I don't know if that's the buildup of MOUNJARO in my system, because I've only had it for a couple weeks now, or if it's the addition of that or what, but I'll take it. So I'm going to continue
that's significant because in the past with MOUNJARO, you haven't seen that much recently, right?
No, not for a year. Like I was sharing with everybody on the YouTube channel this week. It was about Easter of last year that I got to my lowest, and then it was a steady climb back up because my journey was I titrated up to the 15 from the 2.5 to the 15 in like 4 months. I mean, the middle doses weren't available because there were shortages then too. And my doctor was like, well, you should be on the 15 milligram. That's where people do the best. So I just ran up to the 15 as fast as I could. And it did fine for a few months until I started getting migraines. And then the migraines, I titrated back to 12.5, which was a dose I skipped on the way up. And then that didn't take care of it. So then I moved all the way back to 5 and then slowly did like a month each time. And so since I moved back to the 5, like all those months, all the way up to the fall, when I get back to the 15, I had put on another 10, 15 pounds. Yeah. So that's when I was like, well, by that time I was on the 15, I was still gaining weight. And I was like, I'm going to try semaglutide to see if I can switch things up. So
yeah, I remember that. It would be really good to see. I mean, if you stick with the naltrexone, stick with it and see what it does this time with this. Because otherwise we're
I'm going to try. And so one of the things that I've been trying to do on my in my spare time this week is just, read and consume some content. So I'll probably make some informational videos about LDN, because it is, naltrexone, for people who are in watching on the show, is like actually a medicine that's designed to block opioid receptors. So in its normal dosing, like a 25 and 50 milligram, it blocks your opioid receptors in your body. So it's like actually the antidote for an overdose of opioids. But they found and it's also used in alcoholism, in treatment of alcoholism. So what they found is that in low doses, it actually does a lot of really beneficial things for your body, like reduces inflammation. And of course, you've got Contrave, which is an FDA approved weight loss medication, which is bupropion, which I think is Wellbutrin is the brand name. Maybe it's like an antidepressant, and low dose naltrexone as well. So I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, and that makes the Contrave. So
have you taken Contrave before?
Yes, it did nothing.
Tell me about it. It did nothing.
It did nothing. I told my doctor, I was like, literally nothing. No, and it has done nothing for weight loss, but I feel a little bit just lighter about things. I'm slightly, and it wasn't that I was happier. I was just like, I just feel like things can just, it'll all work out, So I was like, I don't want to be on that. If it's not for that, if I'm not losing weight, I don't want to be on that.
And that's the part of me. See, that's the part of me that, like, I don't know that I'd want to take Contrave for that reason,
right?
Because I get really, and you guys can make fun of me all you want because it's due to me. But like, I get so anxious about taking anything that could possibly alter my personality. I just don't want. For many years, I was treated for ADD with Adderall, and I liked what Adderall did for me. I really, really did. I just didn't like how much it changed my personality. And when I got off it, that's when I realized, I was like, it was hard. And first of all, it was a very hard medicine to come off of after being on it for 10 years. But it was a kind of a wake-up call, and I just didn't want to take anything ever that messed with my head again. So I was prescribed, at one point I was prescribed, what's the other combination drug that they give that's for obesity management? Michelle knows. Michelle, since you're here in the chat, I'm going to take advantage of you. It's the medicine that combines topiramate, which is a anti-seizure medication in low doses, and then phentermine. So that's another kind of like combination medicine that's approved for weight loss.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, the brand name of that one is called it escapes me, but somebody will drop it in the chat. Qsymia. Thank you, Aubrey. Qsymia is the name of that one. So that one is Topamax, topiramate, and phentermine, both in low doses, but both for separate indications, then combined, just like Contrave, but different. So.
Well, I was on Vyvanse from 2015 to 2023 August, right before I started the tirzepatide, because I wanted to make sure which one is actually working. So I just kind of cold turkeyed it, which I don't recommend. But
yeah, wasn't that rough too?
I mean, I wanted to sleep for several days.
Yeah.
But initially, when I was on Vyvanse, it was for weight loss and all of that. And once I was on it, I was like, oh, I think I actually have ADHD, because I feel a lot more organized.
Yeah. I'm getting stuff done.
But and now without it, I think after being on it for so long, without it, I'm having a hard time staying motivated. And especially I've heard with tirzepatide that it kind of makes you a little bit more relaxed with things. And I'm like, I think that's actually a thing. I'm not sure, but it seems like that for me. But I mean, I've done all of that. So I did Vyvanse, and it just stopped working after a while, because with that, you can't keep going higher. It's not like tirzepatide. It doesn't work the same way. So we would try to go higher once it's kind of stopped working for me, and I would be gaining weight. But the higher I went, I would get skin crawling sensations all over my body. And that's when you know it's too high. So I just kind of stayed on it for years. And I wasn't sleeping well. I had massive insomnia. And I sleep like a log usually, like my head hits the pillow. and my husband will be able to start saying something, and I'm like, oh, you just woke me up out of a dream. He was like, it's been 5 seconds. So,
That's exactly how
I do not like the insomnia, but so I stopped that, and I just wanted to see which one was really going to, if this really did work, if this really was the miracle thing, and it really was. But I mean, I've done phentermine so many times. I did that Plenity a few years ago. It's like
heard of that one.
Oh, you take you have to go through a doctor and the whole thing, but it basically kind of expands in your stomach and it makes you feel full.
Is it a pill?
Yeah, think of like a baby diaper, except it won't kill you. And that was terrible. All that does is make you feel like you have indigestion. It was terrible. I did hormone pellet therapy, and I gained 10 pounds on that. It was the worst 6 months physically.
Wow.
Where
was when you started on tirzepatide, where was your starting weight, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't mind. I was 170. My highest was 174 last year. So I'm 5'1", and I know that. And so I usually don't really tell people because there's a lot of
people go, they lose the context of
it and getting to, and I always feel bad. I'm like, that's not really my story as much, but I am 5'1". It is different for me, but I also have a lot of pain in my body from I posted this on my thing. I was in a cheerleading accident in college, and they just didn't catch me because they were tired. And with the one moment we didn't have a spotter. And so I had 2.5 years of physical therapy.
Oh my gosh.
All kinds of stuff. I had to sleep with my leg against the wall to not be in pain. I had 2 times of cortisone spinal column injections to stop the massive pain, the spasms I would have all day long. And then they had me on all sorts of pain pills, not like the ones that would alter your brain too much, because I was at college and I couldn't have those there. But then they eventually put me on I had 8 Advil a day for about 10 months. And it just, I had to eat a lot of food so it wouldn't give me an ulcer. And I gained so much weight. But when I say gained so much weight, I weighed 130 pounds. And that was horrifying to me back then. But so I went to a doctor back then after I was, after the spinal stuff, after all the stuff, it's just so much stuff I was doing. And the one doctor, I'm halfway clothed, and he pokes my stomach and he was like, we need to do something about this. And I mean, it was so horrifying. I mean, I was 19, I was so embarrassed, and it just made me think. It was just distorted thinking at that point, of what is really overweight and what's not, because clearly at at that point I weighed 120 when he said that. So it's just insane to me. It doesn't make any sense. And so I would never, so that was always a problem with me. So if I have extra weight on me, it is very painful for me still. Yeah. So I have to not let it get too high. So getting up to 170, 174 pounds is a big, big deal for me. I mean, I'm like limping around the house. And I mean, it's kind of a joke with my family, because my kids are they made up this little video one time years ago, and my son's dragging his leg around the house. He's just saying, he was like, those girls back in '88, they dropped me in that cheerleading accident.
You should find that video and put it on your TikTok channel.
Oh my gosh. I cry laughing. I'm like, they love me. They make fun of me. It's so much fun. So, but what was interesting is, so I had all that stuff happen, and I had so much stress going on from that. And then I know I shared with you before, I've shared with a few other people, when I was in high school in 9th grade, there was a female teacher who took me under her wing, whatever. And she ended up giving me alcohol and got close to me. She did this with a bunch of kids who she wanted to have in her little posse, I guess. I don't know. Totally insane. I mean, just ridiculous. I was 14. And a bunch of other things. And then one time I went to touch her hair to say, it looked nice. And she whipped around and hit me so hard against my head, I slammed into the lockers. And so after that, I didn't talk to her again. But I got called for a deposition, and I was 15, I think, at that point. And I had to give a deposition against her, in front of my parents, all this stuff. Bunch of other
That's
kids
horrifying.
happened. It was so frightening. And then she was so demented. She did so many different things to scare me. And like, she ran my friends off the road. She left pornography in our driveway. She put my mom's name in the paper to call for a good time.
Wow.
They shot our mailbox. I mean, crazy things to where I had night terrors for 10 years. So
Holy folks.
so then my cortisol levels, I mean, I've researched a lot of this since then. My cortisol levels were so high in high school, and my parents sent me to boarding school to protect me at that point. And then I came back because it was a crazy environment. And then I went to college, but nothing ever really got lower. My cortisol levels were so high. I was always in the fight or flight moment of what's going to happen next. And then the cheerleading accident happened, and my levels were, I mean, it was so intense on my little body. And one night I just prayed to the Lord. I was like, just take me from this world. I cannot live like this anymore. I'm in so much pain. I mean, I was 19 when I prayed that. It was terrible, terrible time for me. So eventually things started getting better once they did the cortisone injections and a bunch of other therapies and things like that. And I was able to just manage life a little bit better. And then I met my wonderful husband, wonderful, handsome, wonderful, amazing husband. And we had 2 beautiful children who, I mean, they're my life. And our daughter she's been married for 3 years, and they're going to have their first baby in a few months, a little girl. And it's the first girl on her husband's side in over 100 years. So, I mean, I'm throwing the shower in a couple of weeks. I mean, it's just like the time of my life. And our son is engaged to his darling, darling fiance, who we adore. I mean, we're very blessed, very happy. But, you know, I kind of looked back in my history, and the times where I did not seem to struggle with weight were when I was very happy, and when I was either nursing or pregnant. Now, I gained a lot of weight when I was pregnant, but then afterward, when I was nursing and all that time, I swear I think like my hormone levels just leveled out. Yeah. I don't know. I don't understand it, but that's when I was probably my best. And then after that, I would always be on the yo-yo. I mean, like, my gosh, Herbalife, like all the things, you know, like anything, all of them. I mean, like coffee diet, you know, like I tried that several times, just like, I'll just drink coffee all day long and that's it. You're like, somehow this is going to be the moment where this fixes this. But what was really thought about I hear a lot of people say things, how food noise sounds to them. And it's like, what are we going to eat? When are we going to eat? How much? What's going to be next? You know, thinking about lunch during breakfast. I'd never thought like that. Mine was every 7 or 8 minutes, I would walk to the fridge or the pantry and I would just need something. And I mean, we didn't really have bad foods in the house. So it was an apple, a lick of peanut butter, a cracker, a yogurt, anything, something. And then in that moment, I'd eat it and I'd be like, I will not eat till lunch now, and it'll be a healthy lunch. Be fine. 7 or 8 minutes later, it would come back again, and I would have to satisfy it. And I can only think that it's the mix of the food noise, the brain thing, and the hypoglycemia. I don't know. Insulin resistance, however that works in my body, I don't fully know, but I know that this drug has completely resolved it all for me. So, that to me, and then I have to go, I see a nutritionist as well. And so I was telling her about this, and I said, explain how that whole scenario of what that felt like for me. I said, but it's so strange. I now, like at breakfast, I feel like I'm hungry to eat, and then I don't need to eat for a while. And then it's lunchtime. I notice it's like 12:30, and I'm hungry again. And so I eat something substantial, you know, that I should eat with proteins and whatever. And then I don't need to eat for several hours. And then it's dinner time. I'm like, oh, I'm hungry again. This is what, and I was like, I think something called hunger cues. And she was like, yes. I mean, like, and I mean, I got emotional when I told her that, because I was like, I've never felt that before. Yeah. I didn't even know that concept. When anybody would ever say anything like that, I was always hungry. Like there was always like something that had to be satisfied. And it was never huge portions for me. I mean, my
Right,
husband
just more constant, steady than
constant, like grazing, constant grazing. And it
I
was,
would be the opposite. I'm the total opposite of that. I can go for 6, 7, 8 hours during the day, and my wife's like, "Don't you need to eat?" And I'm like, "Nope." But then when it's time to eat, it's time to eat. And so, in a very similar way, Manjaro does something very similar to me in that I get hungry at the right times and I'm able to eat. And this thing I always say, Korrie, you probably heard me say it before, but I eat normal people food, normal people portions, and I feel normal people full. There's just a sense of normalcy about it where you go, this must be what it was like.
yes,
This must be what it's like to not
yes.
feel the way I've felt my entire life.
Hasn't it felt so like you've been in the dark your entire life, and somehow the people surrounding you with this, like my husband, this does not affect him at all. I mean, his family is beautiful and slender, and they just don't deal with things, but they do have thyroid issues. And guess what? They take medication for it. So to me, I'm like, that's what it's just the way that our bodies work differently. And I'm so glad to not feel badly about myself anymore. I mean, I'm just like, oh, look how easy it is now. Like, this is what normal feels like. It's amazing to know what normal feels like and not be consumed your whole day, or your whole day consumed about what you look like and how much of a failure you feel. I mean, it's just been liberating. So, I love it. I love this.
That is awesome. It's your story is maybe a little bit different than some of the other stories that I've heard. Everybody has kind of their own unique, kind of let's call it broken relationship with food, whatever that looks like for different people. But the universal end result for people who share their stories on a GLP-1 is, I just feel normal.
Yes.
And that's really the gift. If you're just to boil it all down, it's like we've all been dealing with, obesity is a spectrum, not universally experienced the same way by everybody. Obviously, you could say the same for people's relationships with food, but you incorporate the GLP-1 medications, and there's just this universal sense of, I feel normal. And it's such a liberating feeling, even for somebody like me who, I haven't seen the kind of weight loss that people have seen. But when I'm on tirzepatide, specifically Mounjaro, I just feel normal. And that's returned to me really in the last 2 weeks. And it's like reinvigorated me to be back on Mounjaro, because of like, this just feels normal again. Even with Ozempic, it was like, this was just felt like kind of a barbaric early version of
Barbaric.
like you eat and it's just like there's a brick there and it's just there for a long time, and you don't feel full because you're like, it's 6 hours from the time I ate, and I just feel because it is. So is my audio sounding funny to you?
Yeah, it is. It does sound funny.
Okay, is that better?
Yes, it is.
Sounds good. All of a sudden, I say in the chat, everybody's like, your audio's jacked up. For some reason, the stream gets to a certain point and something just always has to go wrong. But thankfully, that's an easy fix.
Since I've done all this, what I love about this is it's been so life-changing. I want others to be able to experience the same, and it's still been such an unknown in my circles, and probably most people's circles, tirzepatide anyway. And so I just became, I was just like, telling everybody, but I didn't do it on Facebook till the other night. And that was crazy. I was like, I told my husband, I was like, I hate Facebook. TikTok is amazing.
Well, and TikTok is amazing because most of the content, you could say the same about any social media platform where you're creating content, because your content stays in a bubble, right? Like when I create a video on TikTok, I generally get really good responses until I get a video that gets 100,000 views on it or 150,000 views on it, because it goes outside of that bubble. And then all of a sudden people come out of the woodwork and it's like, you guys are lazy. You guys are, and you hear all those things where inside the community, it's like, we just get it. We're all just thankful to feel normal. And we know what it felt like universally. We have that experience of what it's like to not feel normal, like our whole adult life. And so there's this solidarity there. And so
you want other people to experience it. Like a girlfriend of mine was over and she was talking to me and we were trying to figure out how to get her into the correct doctor and whatever to get it covered. And we're just, I mean, I've helped her for months now. And I was like, I know what it feels like. She was like, I think about this all. And I was like, all day long. She was like, yes, all day long. Like my whole, and I was just like, I know. And so it was just like, okay, this is not just me. And so that's when I was like, I need to be able to kind of reach out. And at first I was on a live with Sabrina and a bunch of the friends. And I was like, I just figured I'd leave it up to you guys to do this because you're really good at it. I don't really need to make any content. They're like, no, please do something. We can't just do it all on our own. And so they asked. So a lot of times you just need people to ask for your help. And so because they asked, I was like, okay, you're not going to feel like I'm taking away from anything. I don't want to step on anyone's toes. It's not I'm just not like that. And so they're like, no, we want help, like just everybody needs to do it if they can. So that's when I was like, all right, I'll start doing some stuff. So I've done, I mean, my page is very, very minor, little, but I'm just like, I'll do what I can. And I want to help people if they need help. I'm not affiliated with anybody, with any company. I love them all. And I like not being affiliated because I feel like I can really tell people what I really think, individually, and lead them and give them, like my friends, their links and be like, okay, use this person, whatever. And I don't sell anything or whatever. I don't even know what I would do, but I'm having a good time with that. And I really like the advocacy part. I mean, that is kind of my nature. I'm very much into advocacy. I have been for a long time. And so like that teacher that did that a long time ago, maybe 8-9 years ago, found out that she was doing stuff like that again to more kids. And,
how'd they let her near your kids again?
I'm sorry?
Is that how they let her near kids again?
Oh, she was allowed right back in. She had like a year off, I think. And her same attorney with the school was still involved. And this time I was an adult and I went to I was very involved locally at that point. And so I knew a lot of people. And they got me in touch with the superintendent. I wrote like a 7-page letter detailing all of the stuff. And I was like, and that attorney is still. And so what ended up happening in a course of a few days, they red carded her, which it means that she can no longer teach in the state of Florida. And so that was a big win for me. And then found out that she was doing it online, teaching online, like, getting kids to come to her house or go into their house or whatever. I contacted all those companies and got her fired from all those companies. And so I was like, you're not going to. So then since then, though, I got much more involved and I worked on a human trafficking anti-abuse bill in Florida. It was the second one, I think, of its kind in the nation. And the year that we tried it, it failed, but it made it through the next year. And so advocacy is kind of my passion, just for anyone that has something where they just need help with. And so usually it's for children. I like doing things like that for anybody who's really suffering. But because this has affected me so much and it's where I'm at right now, I'm like, okay, I know how to advocate. And so if I can lift people up who I think are really going to be good advocates like you, that's one of the reasons why I'm always just like, let me lift up Dave. He's amazing. I've got to get him out there. And then Kim and JJ, like all those people. I really try to stay very active with that, get people connected however I can, if there's in the future that I can help with anything. Anybody who can be an advocate in their own way that is comfortable for them makes a difference. So if somebody has a talent of connecting people politically, that is a huge deal. If you just want to be an advocate for helping people know which medications to take, which like peptide bite, things like that. If you're more comfortable staying like that, that's significant. There we go. Yes, exactly. I take it too. And so just like anywhere where you can be an advocate in your own life, surrounding the people that you love and that you care for, even online that you end up loving and caring about, it makes a difference. And the people that are able to actually do bigger things, like when they have podcasts, or if they're willing to go to DC or really just to their state, it really begins the local level, doing a lot of these things, getting involved. And so if you want to make change and a difference, you have to get involved. And it's usually better if you're pleasant to work with. And so because you see a lot of people go in very aggressively and want to just, this is what we need to have done. It doesn't work out so well that way usually. So if people are a little bit more gentle with how they first go in, lift up the people that they're trying to work with and trying to get answers from and get change from, it works out a little bit better. But politics is just difficult. And there's so much all the way up at the top that you don't really know until you're really in it. But it can be done. And I loved what happened today with you made all of that.
Oh yeah, did we not talk about that? I don't think we talked about that at the beginning.
I don't know. Did you talk about it in the very beginning? If not,
well, I talked about it on the members only thing, but yeah, for anybody who's watching right now, there's a huge update on Medicare adding, and maybe I did mention this. It all runs together, but Medicare added Wegovy to Part D, so not for obesity indication, but for those with heart disease, to prevent major cardiovascular events. And so that was a huge step in the right direction, because we've been fighting, and we've been talking about on this channel a lot about how some of the trials that they're running right now for semaglutide, specifically the 2.4 milligram of Wegovy, but they are running some for MOUNJARO now as well, that will be backdoor ways into getting these medications for people who are on Medicare. And so this is one way for now like Catherine says, it's a huge win for those on Medicare. And then, we'll continue to advocate for the passing of the Treat and Reduce Obesity Act. And so having people who are connected politically is going to be a huge piece of this. It's more than just signing a petition, but getting people who know people to understand this and understand the importance of changing, not only, on a small level, like changing a law like the Treat and Reduce Obesity Act would, but advancing the greater dialogue within society of the fact that obesity is a disease. That's why Oprah, for all of the things that you could say about Oprah, and she's, for whatever reason, she's a polarizing figure in her own right. But, she, on her show, had some people that really helped to advance the conversation about the disease of obesity. And so I really liked what you said in our email exchange, because this is something that's bounced around in my head for years. I used to be very involved politically. I used to obsess over it the way that I do over this stuff, right? But that for me did not leave me in a good headspace most of the time.
Yeah.
And I remember coming to this realization, and I think more it was a spiritual thing. It was like God telling me, like, you aren't responsible for changing the world. You're responsible for impacting the part of the world that I've put you in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think there's a part, like, we were never designed to carry the burdens of what's going on all around the world. It's just we happen to live in a day and age where you can't get away from it. So you're feeling all these things about things that are going around halfway around the world, when there's things right in your path every day and people right in your path every day that you can make an impact on. And of course, we're talking about that in terms of the GLP-1 community, but even in your own lives and outside of the topics that we're talking about here, there are people in your own lives that you can make an impact on. And if we would just all focus.
Very true. It is very true, because like when I first started out doing stuff like that, I got up in a meeting and I said I wanted to save the world. I mean, like, that's what I wanted to do. Like, I was so passionate. And then I came to realize over the course of a few years that how I save the world is by starting locally and starting with anybody around me and getting to know local politicians and things like that, and really, connecting with them. And like when the bill failed that we tried to get passed the first time, it failed because pork was added onto it that somebody else wanted to have put onto it, and it screwed it up. And they're only allowed so many bills, so that one got screwed up for that season. For that session. And so then the next year, a different set of people who wanted their name on it, they then made it pass. I mean, I hate to say it in this way because it's not a game, but it is a game of chess. Sure. And so you have to be able to know how to play it. And with things like this, there's already people way up at the top that are playing it, I assure you. And so that's why that happened today. But getting involved locally for one specific issue is great to do. You just have to be able to make those connections with people and have relationships, because they just don't listen. I mean, you can make as many phone calls as you want. Like, everybody can bombard them. It usually doesn't do that much, honestly. Right. So it's really about actually physically getting involved and getting to know these people, because they don't know you from Adam. You're just another person, and your passion is not going to be what's on their radar. It has to kind of help them out a little bit too.
Right.
Things like that. But I really do. I mean, that's why I have loved your show so much from the beginning. So I'm like, this is what I'm used to. I love how he is with all of his content. I'm totally obsessed. And I do believe fully that you can make a real difference. So that's why I've always just been like, yeah, whatever I can do, however you need help with anything, I am happy to do anything that I could. Right now it's just like lifting you up, but
well, someday, given your connections, and that your skills, your abilities, and connections will come in handy.
Well, I'm happy to if I kind of retired from it a few years ago, and I'm much happier for it. My cortisol levels just kind of went down, so it's been nice. Right now, I feel like I'm living in the best year of my life, quite honestly.
That's great. Well, you've got a lot of good things on the horizon in your personal life. You've got a growing little TikTok channel that I think will be impactful in its own right. It already is. And so if you all are on TikTok, make sure that you follow Korrie. It's K.O.
No, that's Instagram.
Oh, okay. So
I just had to make it up because you asked people to the other day. I was like, fine, I'll do it because of you. I'll go on Instagram. But on TikTok, it's .Korrie.
Korrie.
Yeah. The other Korries were taken.
Okay. I was going to try to create a thing real quick, but my computer's not. I'll put it in the link of the description of this video. That's the beauty of YouTube, is that there's a description of this video that's got lots of stuff in there. So we'll make sure that we put your social media call outs in there. And there was one piece of advice that you would want to leave people who are maybe just starting their journey or just looking into GLP-1s, because I mean, so much of what's going on social media right now, I don't think we even understand it, because we're all, like I said, in our bubble of people who have been on the medications. We're creating content, but like I said earlier, at a minimum, there's like 80,000 people a week joining Zepbound, getting on Zepbound for the first time or getting their prescription. There's an equal amount of people getting new Wegovy prescriptions. So there's 150,000 people a week just between Zepbound and Wegovy getting on these medications. What would be your recommendation to them?
Don't do it alone.
Yeah.
I think it has made such an impact on my life personally to not do this alone, because I did semaglutide before alone. I did it with a company, with the doctor's office and everything, but it was still alone. I didn't understand it. I didn't quite understand how it worked, or how the right kinds of foods would help, or the right nutrients, and just like people walking alongside it with you. I didn't really put much weight into that. And besides that, I would have never done that before, talked to anybody much about it. But this time, this community, just an online community, is just been so paramount, I think, to my entire journey. I feel like it would look very different for me, because initially on the compound, I was not doing well because I didn't know what I was doing. And it was just at this local IV place that I absolutely love. They've been wonderful, but this is before the new ownership. And so they tried their best, but I didn't know what I was doing. And they didn't fully know how to help me, And so it was all very new. And so once I joined TikTok and started following everybody on here and getting real information of how you can do this in a healthy way, that you don't always get from your physician or, your clinic or whatever. It made such an impact on how my journey has gone. And every day is just fantastic. As far as physically like that, every day is a joy right now. I am going to want that for the rest of my life. So I will always be on something like this now that I know that my body has been sick and I didn't know. So I would just say, don't do it alone.
That's awesome advice.
We're here for you. We're here for everybody,
Absolutely. At any point in your journey, I always tell people that when I first came to TikTok, I was like, man, how do people get on these lives and just say the same thing over and over? Because literally there's some creators over there, they'll go on and they are happy to answer for 2-3 hours at a time. Here's how we deal with sulfur burps, and here's how we deal with fatigue and nausea. And seriously, when you said at the beginning that you've learned so much from TikTok, there's just things that you can learn from inside of a community who's been there, done that, that you're not going to learn from your doctor. Your doctor should be the one giving you advice that's medical, that's, here's the medication, here's what it does to your body, and here are your options to treat what you have. But your doctor hasn't been on the medication. Your doctor hasn't lived through the side effects, but the community has. And so it's been a very helpful resource for so many people. So that's great advice to people. I really appreciate you coming on tonight, Korrie and Sharon. I won't keep you all night here, but it was a pleasure to meet you and to hear a little bit about your story. We'll throw your social media call outs in the description of this video. And at some point, we'd love to have you back and talk a little bit more about your growing channel. And we'll see. You said you haven't been on for TikTok for that long, but you have something like 5,000 followers. So who knows what the next 6 months, 12 months will bring.
I don't know, but now I'm here for it. So thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. I love your content. I love your heart. And I love that you are passionate for the Lord, quite frankly. So thank you.
Thank you. Always fun to meet a fellow sister or brother in Christ. Yes. And so thank you for being here. And thank you for sharing a little bit of your time with us tonight. Have a good night.
Thank you.
That's Korrie, friends. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us some of your time tonight. It is so fun. We have all types of people who have given their time to come in on the show and sharing their journeys. And I think some of my favorite ones are just people who come and just tell their story because there's just so many stories are different. That's what I'm learning about my own journey. Like, it's okay to sit down and share your journey and have it not be everybody else's journey, right? And so I've been coming to that realization on my own. And there's always, because of the magic of the internet, a bunch of people out there who have a similar story, who can identify with things that you went through. And it's just helpful. It's just helpful on this journey, which is not an easy journey. It is not the easy way out, but certainly with community. And that was great advice at the end from Korrie. Don't do it alone, because you don't have to. Thank you all for being here tonight. This has been a great show. Love doing this with you all every week. You're also great to be here. Make sure that you hit that like button. If you're here from TikTok, my TikTok channel has every day for the last 2 days when I get into TikTok in the day, I have a warning. I have strikes against my account. I don't know what's happening over there. So I don't know how long they will allow me to be over there or why they're doing what they're doing. But if you're here from TikTok tonight, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So if you haven't connected with me there, we also have a podcast. So on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, we have a weekly podcast called On the Pen, the Weekly Dose. It is a weekly dose of just GLP-1 information. So if you are interested in getting a weekly dose of what's new in the world of GLP-1s, make sure you check out that podcast. Leave it a 5-star rating and review. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being the best part of what I do here at Man on the Mounjaro. I realize I say it every week, but I mean it every week. I couldn't, wouldn't, and shouldn't do this without you. Until next week, we will see you all on the pan. Have a great week, everyone. We'll catch you next